From 2016, I've moved to a good home. I leave behind the ice house. Dan Andrews would rather I lived with an ice addict, and you should too. For some, at the moment, the sex party has more credibility. From 2015, blame game regarding executions of Mayurin and Andrew have begun. Waleed Ali has blamed Mr. Abbott over irrelevant issues. Meanwhile, a culpable Australian Labor Party fractures over same-sex marriage and Palestine. Both those issues are irrelevant, too, to the execution. Except while Mayurin and Andrew could have used the then ALP government assistance, which would have been effective in preventing their execution, the Australian Labor Party were navel-gazing at these two issues. Same-sex marriage is meaningless so long as civil unions are sanctioned. It is an intrusion on religion which no government should touch. Palestine is a UN-endorsed terrorist state that is populated by Jordanians. If anyone felt compassion for them, they would send them back. New cases in China and Malaysia regarding alleged Australian drug smugglers caught with death penalty amounts of drugs have arisen. It is unlikely the Australian Labor Party or ABC will be able to condemn these people fast enough, so they have begun preparing a blame game for the government. The salient statistics on race and politics arrest for 2012 posted yesterday have been answered by Marcus Anderson on Australian Political Debate Open Forum. Far, far more black people are alienated from American society on a percentage basis than white people, touting sentiments that ignore the historical and important facts reflect your indifference to the problem of racial vilification this meme represents. In other words, Marcus feels the statistics on their own contravene Section 18C of the Racial Vilification Act of Australia. Were that true, then the device would indeed be a meaningless instrument of censorship. It is possible, were one to face the same sentencing judge that Andrew Bolt faced, that Marcus's views would be upheld, although many have told me that the judge is an effective independent member of the judiciary and not some partisan tool, as evidenced by that judgment on Bolt. Nepal has more than 6,100 deaths from earthquakes. She needs fresh food and water and shelter for her survivors. Please give generously and pray for her people. Prayer works. In 313, Licinius defeated Maximinus and united the Eastern Empire of Rome at the Battle of Cyrallum. He became co-emperor of Rome with Constantine I. Both were involved with making the Edict of Milan, which was to make Christian worship acceptable in Rome. Both emperors were capable and eyed the other as a rival. Licinius married the half-sister of Constantine I. Fighting continued between the two. Licinius promoted a rival to Constantine I, Valerius Valens, as co-emperor, but when Constantine objected, Licinius had Valerius killed. After Constantine won a final battle between the two in 324, Licinius's wife begged for the old man's life to be spared. Constantine I spared Licinius's life for a year, and then hanged him in a pretext of conspiring to raise troops. In 1492, Spain gave permission for Columbus to become very rich by trading in the East by ship. In 1789, Washington took the oath of office to become President of the United States of America. In 1803, the Louisiana Purchase took place for a mere $15 million, doubling the land size of the United States. In 1871, terrorists, afraid of losing federal funding by the U.S. government, attacked American Indians, killing the adults and selling the children into slavery in Mexico from Arizona. President U.S. Grant ordered Arizona to improve her justice issues or risk being subject to federal martial law, so Arizona proceeded to try Indians on any pretext. It was called the Camp Grant Massacre. In 1894, Coxey's army reached Washington, D.C. to protest unemployment following the Panic of 1893. It is only coincidence that President Grover Cleveland was a Democrat doing what Democrat administrations do, which is to blame Jews, failed to budget appropriately, and mishandle industrial and labor issues. There had been a bubble caused by railroad building and a bust caused by Argentina-focused investments going sour after a coup in Buenos Aires. From Wikipedia, historian Hasnia Diner notes that some populists believe that Jews made up a class of international financiers whose policies had ruined small family farms. Jews, they asserted, owned the banks and promoted the gold standard, the chief source of their impoverishment. Agrarian radicalism posited the city as antithetical to American values, asserting that Jews were the essence of urban corruption. In 1900, Hawaii became a territory of the United States on the same day. At 3:52 a.m., a great, good, heroic 37-year-old family man was killed doing his job for the railroads. He was Casey Jones. He'd been tasked with taking a 95-minute late train, Cannonball Express, from Memphis, Tennessee to Canton, Mississippi. He had a reputation of being very reliable, and he made up time on the foggy night. But the railroad let him down when he made up the missing time coming to his destination. Freight trains laid across the path of his engine. He saved the colleague next to him and everyone else by remaining in the carriage and slowing his train. He died, and the railroads blamed him on a false occupational health and safety report, claiming he had been warned of the impasse. His widow wore black for the rest of her long life, dying in 1958 at the age of 92, never having considered remarrying after losing the father of her 3 children. In 1927, Douglas Fairbanks and Mary Pickford became the first celebrities to leave their footprint in concrete in Hollywood. In 1938, the animated cartoon short of Porky's Hare Hunt featured Happy Rabbit, a prototype of Bugs Bunny. Also in 1938, the first televised FA Cup final occurred in 1939. NBC began regular scheduled TV broadcasts with FDR's New York World Fair opening address. In 1943, Operation Mincemeat had a British submarine release a dead body dressed up as a British officer with fake invasion plans. It was a plot thought up by James Bond's creator, Ian Fleming. In 1945, Hitler found out after a day marriage was not for him. In 1956, a corrupt former Democrat VP, Alben Barkley, died during a speech in Virginia. He collapsed after proclaiming, "I'd rather be a servant in the house of the Lord than sit in the seats of the mighty." In 1966, the Church of Satan was established at the Black House in San Francisco. In 2008, skeletal remains were found of the last Tsar and one of his sisters in Yekaterinburg,